So we're here this afternoon at the King's Winford School with Rebecca Franks, who's Head of Pupil Premium here, as well as Curriculum Leader for Computing. Rebecca, it's great to be here with you this afternoon.
Thank you
ever so much for having us. And what we want to do is talk around this area of Pupil Premium, and particularly how this relates to computing. So let's get things started. Yes. What is Pupil Premium?
So Pupil Premium is a government initiative that began in 2011, and it aims to raise attainment of Pupil Premium students and hopefully narrow or close the gap in attainment.
And who are Pupil Premium students?
There are several groups, so we're looking at free school meal students in the last 6 years, looked after children and adopted children as well.
Okay, so one could think of these as children from particularly disadvantaged backgrounds. And is there an attainment gap?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so Pupil Premium is some funding which is there for a school to help address that and, as you say, narrow the gap.
Yeah. We get roughly, in secondary school, it is £935 per Pupil Premium student in our school. In primary schools, they get a bit more. I think it's about £1,300.
And schools are, imagine, held to account for how this money is spent.
We're accountable for every penny that we spend, and it has to be ring-fenced and spent on the Pupil Premium students.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
And do the inspectorate and others expect you to provide evidence that this has narrowed the gap?
Absolutely, and it is. We are measured on that. When Ofsted come, they will look at what we're doing with the gap, but they'll also look at the strategies that we're using and how much money we're spending on each strategy, and whether they're successful as well. But their main interest is, are we raising attainment of Pupil Premium students, and are we narrowing the gap in our school?
And you say the funding is ring-fenced, that
yes.
The accountability requires that it be spent on interventions which are targeted solely at your disadvantaged students?
There are strategies that we use that are specifically for Pupil Premium students, but then the big thing that schools need to do if they want to make an impact on Pupil Premium students is ensure quality first teaching.
Right.
So if you improve the teaching in a school, obviously it's going to benefit all the students, isn't it?
Yes.
Not just the Pupil Premium students, but there's a lot of research to say that if a Pupil Premium student is in front of an outstanding teacher, they're going to make better progress than if they're in front of a poor teacher. So it's worth putting quite a lot of your funding into training staff and making sure that staff are using successful strategies in the classroom. But it does, indirectly benefit every student.
Yes.
Which
a rising
is
tide lifts all boats. That by improving the quality of teaching overall, that's going to be a strategy which has particular impact on these particular disadvantaged students.
I mean, that is the priority. Teaching and learning is the priority always with Pupil Premium, and you have to get that right, because a lot of the time, if you try and put in interventions on top of that, if there's still poor teaching going on, it's like a sticking plaster. It doesn't have the same impact. There's been a study recently that was published in November that actually proved that as well. So schools are successful if the teaching and learning is already good, and then they've put extra interventions on top of that.
I mean, teaching and learning brings together a whole host of different ideas there. Are there particular interventions you can make within this notion of quality first teaching that will have impact on the most disadvantaged students?
The key one is effective feedback. That is one of the top ones on the list. The next one.
So when you say the list, this is
the Education Endowment Foundation, their toolkit that they've produced, and you can find that quite easily on the internet. You can go on there and you can search for the highest impact strategies with the least, that cost the least amount of money, and if you do that, effective feedback is on the top of the list.
So marking students' work seems better than not marking.
But it has to be effective, and that's the key.
So what makes for effective feedback?
Something that allows the student to see how to progress further. So just ticking, there's no point. Sometimes it's beneficial, but there's no point. Writing loads and loads and loads of comments, again, if the student isn't going to read it, then it's not effective. and the next one is metacognition. I think that has about the same amount.
Can you just unpack metacognition?
So learning about learning, so getting the students to see how they learn and plan their learning so that they can, so if you give them an outcome, then if they don't understand it, then they plan, well, how am I going to understand this by the end?
This is in part about making them take some responsibility for their learning, rather than this is just something which we do to you.
Yeah, so it's more of a journey that they go on, really, and you're the facilitator almost. But it does promote better learning, because then they're more enthused about what they're doing. They're not just sat there listening to something. They're very enthused about, because they're taking charge of their own education, really. So it is a very good strategy to use. And we use that in my curriculum area in terms of social taxonomy.
Okay, let's turn then to computing. Things like feedback, as you say, and metacognition, and I think high at the EF's list is peer tutoring. They're all high-impact interventions. But how do they then relate specifically to what we're interested in, which is computing?
Well, I mean, effective teaching and learning, it impacts on all subject areas, really. In computing, it is making a difference, because we're using it. We've picked those three. Well, we've picked solo taxonomy, mastery learning.
Again, can you explain what you mean by mastery learning?
Right. So mastery learning is the students have one learning outcome, and they pursue that outcome until it's achieved.
So how long does it take then
for initially
students to acquire knowledge of, let's say, repetition or functions?
So initially, when we first introduced it, it took them a while to grasp it, and we did have to keep adapting what we were doing with the students, because they might be able to, if we did repetition one lesson, they could maybe do a while loop in Python, but it was more them copying you. They weren't really understanding what it was doing. So
they've not mastered the ideas.
Exactly. So it did take a long time for them to master it initially, but now, because they've got used to that process of learning through the solo structure, which we also use, they're progressing a lot faster. So it just took them a while to pick it up initially, but now we're sort of progressing faster. So it is working really well. And we don't, in our school, in Key Stage 3, we don't have a pupil premium gap at all.
Wow. So the gap has been closed.
Key Stage 4, we still have a gap, but it has, in our department, it has halved since we've started using this strategy. So it definitely works, and we can see it. The students are engaged, and they are making progress, and you can see it, and they're interested, and they're supporting each other, and that's the main thing. Where the peer learning comes into it, really, naturally into our model, rather than we don't say, right, we're doing peer learning now, but naturally, if a child is struggling, but the person next to them got it, then they do support each other very well.
Just ask your view on two of those other ideas there. And firstly, the feedback thing. Do you think when children are learning to program, and I know there's much more to computing than just the programming, because there's that immediate feedback from the computer of my program works, it does what I wanted it to do, or it compiles, it runs. Do you feel that closes that feedback loop, and that sort of immediate feedback helps?
Yeah, I do think it does help, actually, because they are getting the feedback straight away, but sometimes it can be quite frustrating there at the same time. But then we're trying to build resilience in our students, so it does help in that sense as well. But they are getting that immediate feedback. It
seems quite different. My programme does what I wanted it to I've waited a little while and my teacher has given me some comments on the presentation that I made. That feels qualitatively
and it feels like they've done it and achieved something themselves when it works.
And of course you get the chance to try ideas out and to experiment and learn through that process. The other one around that sort of metacognition thing is I know Seymour Papert wrote about children who programmed computers, learnt about learning and thought about thinking. Do you see that with your students? That through really?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we came across actually, we introduced the computing curriculum probably 2 years ago, and we've got a module in Year 8 where they have to do an online collaboration using Google Drive. They make a project, and and it's all to do with a charity event that they're putting
Yes,
on
okay.
in the school,
Yeah.
pretend one.
Oh,
So they go through, I know, yeah, they were like, this, are we going to do? And I'm like, sorry, no. But, so they come up and they have to use Google Forms to survey their peers and all that kind of stuff. And then we got to one point where they had to use a spreadsheet. And they were like, what's this? And I was like, we don't teach spreadsheets anymore. And I suddenly thought, wow, now this is suddenly relevant. And I stopped them for a while and I taught them, gave them a little bit of a demo, this is how it works. And they just went off and did it.
It's very good.
They just knew how to do it. And I was like, this is just incredible. Like, it used to take me 6 weeks to teach how to use a spreadsheet.
Because they've got this conceptual understanding, they can then apply that in another, essentially text-based programming environment, which
exactly,
is what a spreadsheet
and it was amazing.
Really
but now we've realised we've got to do a bit more spreadsheets because they're obviously lacking. You're trying to do one thing, and now you've realised there's a...
Spreadsheets are a great way to introduce functional programming.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's what we're looking at now. How to build that in a bit more. But I was so impressed that they could just pick it up really quickly because they've learned how to learn.
You mentioned earlier this solo taxonomy, which I've heard you speak about before. Can you explain what is the solo taxonomy? What's going on there?
So solo taxonomy is the way we assess the students in the classroom.
Okay.
And also they use it as a model to see their learning as well. So it's very much dialogue between the student and the teacher. And it's got 5 levels. The first level is pre-structural, and that means basically I haven't got a clue. And we always say it's absolutely fine if you haven't got a clue at this point. If I'm saying some gibberish to you, then that's
because teaching them things that they already know would be a waste of everybody's
Exactly, So, and to help with resilience and help with confidence, I always say, nothing wrong with that. When I heard this myself 3 years ago, I didn't have a clue either, so don't worry about that. So, and then we start building on the learning. The next stage is unistructural. Unistructural means that they can usually say one thing about the whatever outcome you're learning.
In primary terms, an algorithm is a sequence of instructions.
Yeah, so they can say that. So they can say what it is. And then the next stage is multistructural, which is where they can start to talk about a few key terms, a few areas of that, which means they're about halfway through the learning there, so they're progressing. And then the next stage is relational, where they start to put it all together. They could quite happily follow some instructions and do something.
So you might expect a child to be able to link the idea of an algorithm to that of a program.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And then the final stage, which is a stage we're trying to get them all to, is the extended abstract stage, which is the best stage, the exciting stage, because they've got all the basics and now they can go off and do their own thing, really, because they know what the outcome is, they've achieved it, but now they can create something new or evaluate or theorise.
So applying it in a creative way.
Yeah, apply it to other things.
A field that they've not, of course. And so we get this, we learn computational thinking through programming computers, but then we can apply it in other areas of the curriculum.
Exactly, So that's the bit we were trying to get them to.
And how do you assess this then?
We've got our mastery sheets that for each module of work that we do, they all have a sheet on their desk, and it has, say, if a module's got 5 outcomes, it will have 5 learning outcomes on there, and it will have the solo symbols on there as well. That's out on their desks, and it will ask them questions like, where am I going? And we will have that dialogue with them, or sometimes they'll write themselves in what they think in that box. And then we just circle, really, it's quite quick. Okay. We just circle what level we think they're on, and they can keep circling that until they get to that top one.
And that then informs your planning and the activities which you...
Absolutely, and because you've got that constant dialogue with the students, you're very aware of how much they understand.
And are they aware of the marks that you're making on paper?
Yes, they love watching themselves get better. They can see it on the piece of paper, and that it's all about seeing their learning, this process. And if they can see that they've done all of that, it's an achievement for them.
I think you make a very convincing argument for the best thing you can spend Pupil Premium on is improving the quality of teaching.
Absolutely,
That's going to have far more impact than other things that you could put the money towards.
Yeah.
Can I talk about some of the other things that you could spend the money on?
Yeah.
So, I think certainly when it comes to computing, but I could make a case for learning across the curriculum.
Yeah.
Access to the web seems to be a very significant thing. That if you can find this information and teach yourself these things, then that's got to be a good thing.
Yeah.
So what about spending some of this money on buying a device for the child, buying them an iPad, buying them a Chromebook, buying them a Raspberry Pi? Is that something that's allowed?
Definitely, yeah. You can. It is up to you what you spend. You're accountable basically. So if you decide, right, I'm going to buy Raspberry Pis for all my Pupil Premium students, you can do that, but you have to have a measurable impact on what you have done.
Everybody's done those studies.
Not as far as I know. Not with the whole cohort.
Right.
Certainly in our school, the computing gifted and talented Pupil Premium students have all had a Raspberry Pi kit with Carrie Ann's book with the kit, and they've all had that to use at home, and then they tell me what they've learned about that and what they've done at home through that Raspberry Pi, but we haven't done like a blanket strategy.
An iPad for all Pupil Premium students.
No, because
your reaction suggests that you think that might be not an entirely good idea.
No, because it has to be, every Pupil Premium student is an individual, they all have their own individual needs, so it's not, some of them don't need an iPad, some of them need a new uniform, or a bus pass, or music lessons.
Right.
Or support.
So this should be much more a pupil-centred thing.
Absolutely,
School having to be tech-centred.
Yeah, I mean we have provided devices for them in the past, but only if there's been
if that's going to make the most difference for that particular child.
Yeah.
Okay, and that I suppose takes me back to the days of Beckter's home access scheme. I remember when Beckter would provide single-use credit card to provide families of, I think it was children who were entitled to free school meals with a home computer, with some software, and with a year's internet access. Is that something which could be done with Pupil Premium money?
Absolutely. Again, you could do that if you wanted to. If you thought that it was going to benefit and have an impact on the student, then you could absolutely do that. The other thing that you might want to do is have a breakfast club or a homework club where you've got a member of staff that's qualified that can talk to students just about their day, really, and help them with their homework.
Which will cost probably a little less than...
and also that it's easier to see the impact there because you're working directly with the students in the school.
So how do you go about demonstrating the impact of this? Is this down to test scores? And you say there is no gap.
I mean we've got internal systems where we can see what the gap is in our school. We've got a really good piece of software called Four Matrix where we can analyse. Have you heard of it? So you can analyse the gap in anything really. So girls and boys, SEN, and so you can really dig into the data and find out what's going on with your whole cohort from 7 to 11.
And track this over time and say, we made this intervention and look what effect it had.
So really it's always best to be able to track the attainment and the progress and the gap, which obviously we're judged in year 11 with the GCSE results, and we're judged on the gap there and how much it's narrowed. And that's, in a way, that's quite an easy thing to do because the data's just there. Whereas other interventions, like music lessons, for example, are a little bit trickier to prove the impact. So in that sense, we might do look at their behaviour data to see if that's improved, or their attendance to see if that's improved. So again, you've got it is hard data that you can use. And then there's surveys that you can use as well to survey them at the beginning of a strategy, at the middle, at the end, to see if there's been any changes in the answers. So you can see soft impact and you see hard data as well.
So imagine somebody in Computing at Schools community who finds themselves given this role of head of Pupil Premium. What are the things that you'd say to them that you wish somebody had said to you when you took on the role?
Definitely the teaching and learning thing straight away, getting that right. And because now we've developed what we believe is the perfect model to use in the classroom. So, I love sharing that model with other people because I know how much it works. And our department has worked so hard to tweak every form and everything that we do with the students to get that right. And we almost feel like we're at the last thing that we did is the one, but it's gone from a massive booklet with solo taxonomy just to a piece of paper, because we want to make it effective, we want to make it quite fast to happen in the lessons as well.
Of course.
So really I would just say, if you want to improve Pupil Premium in computing, use this strategy in your classroom because it works.
Okay, and when you say this strategy, this is essentially...
So mass relearning, solo taxonomy, and
That's great.
That's what I would say to use.
It works.
And then on top of that, if students need a computer at home, if students would benefit from having a Raspberry Pi, then absolutely provide that for them as well. But it is the teaching and learning, getting that right.
That shouldn't come as a surprise to any of us.
No, it shouldn't. It's just obvious, really, isn't it? But it does have a massive difference.
Right. Rebecca, thank you ever so much for having us here this afternoon. It's been such a pleasure listening to you talking about these brilliant ideas.
Yeah.
It really has. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Subscribe to Kaz TV on YouTube for the great content that we've got coming up soon.